U.S. President Donald Trump signed another executive order today to declassify a series of government files.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed.
On the campaign trail, Trump had promised to release classified intelligence on those assassinations. He had made a similar promise during his last term and did declassify some documents in JFK's death. However, he ultimately bowed to pressure from the CIA and FBI to keep a majority of the files a secret over national security concerns. Our next guest is a presidential historian who has written extensively about JFK. Thomas Whalen is the author of JFK and His Enemies, A Portrait of Power, and Kennedy versus Lodge, the 1952 Massachusetts Senate race. He joins us now from Beverly Hills, Massachusetts. And thank you for being here, Thomas. Trump's executive order will declassify any remaining files from JFK's assassination. As someone who wrote books on this topic, your reaction to the news?
Well, I'm certainly curious to see what they may contain, but I'm not getting my hopes up to the point where we can definitively decide whether or not there was, in fact, a conspiracy to kill JFK.
And we know that's the big question, right? A lot of conspiracy theories around this one. What do you think the president is so interested in declassifying these documents?
Well, let's just say he's more of the conspiratorial bent than a lot of his predecessors in the Oval Office. Plus, I think it sounds like he cut a deal with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of the assassinated Senator Robert F. Kennedy of New York. Yep. And he provided valuable political service to the president during the campaign, and this might be the payback. Trump, after all, is a very transactional president.
Oh, you're right on that. And that's an interesting point. I didn't think about that. Trump already released some of the files in 2022, and most of the files have already been made public. Hoping to find anything in these remaining documents? You say you're not hopeful there may be a lot there.
Well, I'm curious. I think many historians are that, just before the assassination in Dallas, Lee Harvey Oswald entered the Soviet and Cuban embassies in Mexico City. And in the Cuban embassy, I believe he was rumored to have had a reported affair with the secretary there. And so we still, to this day, don't know exactly, at least historians and what's been released, if there was any kind of a conversation or deal struck there. And I'd be curious to see if this would shed any light on that, if there was some sort of connection to Cuba or the Soviet Union, which would really change everyone's understanding here.
Yeah, you're making this even more interesting. I wonder if that was in your book, because I hadn't heard that either. It's been 60 years since JFK's assassination and the release of those files. It's still generating headlines today. What do you think it is about this case that captured the public attention for all these years?
Well, it was the first really big event that was televised. And, this is when television was coming to age in the early 1960s.
Yeah, that was the first big debate, too, right?
Right. And also, the baby boomer was coming of age. This was the demographic, bulge after World War II. And this is one of their searing memories, just as for Generation Z, 9/11 and would be, and other events after 2001. So there is this great mystery, which many would compare to a rabbit hole. The further you go down, the more confused you get. And I think you could be cautious when you approach this material. There's all sorts of wild theories, but from what I see is that the federal government was very concerned about where Lee Harvey Oswald might lead them. They were worried about World War III because, less than 50 years before, another high-profile assassination led to World War I. And if there was some sort of connection to Cuba here or the Soviet Union, then we could have
Yeah.
had a similar
Right,
situation.
the Cold War. Now, President Trump says he's authorizing the release of these files to restore transparency and accountability to government. Do you think this release could tamp down conspiracy theories about Kennedy's assassinations? Will this information help or just add to the fire?
I think it will increase speculation exponentially, right? You know, and
No matter what's
again,
in there. I mean, what if there's some specifics in there?
Well, that we'll have to see. I would imagine if there was any really kind of like damning documents, they've already been destroyed.
Okay.
But you never know. But you have to remember, too, the Kennedy assassination was the first of a series of tragedies, you know,
Yes.
the Vietnam War, Watergate crises that eroded Americans' confidence in their federal government. Before 1963, most of public opinion polls showed that Americans trusted their government and its leaders. And by the end of the 70s, just the opposite occurred. And it really continues to this day.
Well, depending on what is released, we may have to pick up this conversation again to talk about what's actually in these papers. We appreciate your time tonight. That was Thomas Whalen, a presidential historian and a professor at Boston University. My kid went to Lafayette. We used to play you guys in basketball at BU. Nice talking to you, Thomas. Thank you for your time tonight.
My pleasure.